It was just over 5 years ago now where Felipe Nasr debuted in Formula 1 and was considered to be a promising up-and-coming driver, but he only managed to spend a limited time in Formula 1 and he has very rarely been talked about since. So what happened to Felipe Nasr? Looking at his racing career as a whole, Nasr started with a brief stint in the Formula BMW Americas in 2008 before moving into Formula BMW Europe for 2009, where he dominated the field and won the series quite comfortably. He also won 2 races in a 3-race stint in the Formula BMW Pacific. The turn of the decade saw Nasr move into the British Formula 3 Championship, and he'd have a successful debut season, finishing 5th and also claiming his maiden race win in the category. He'd stay in the same category for his second season in 2011, and while teammate Kevin Magnussen kept Nasr honest for most of the season, Nasr was clearly the best driver in the field and once again showed his class in winning the British Formula 3 Championship with a total of 318 points compared to Magnussen's 237 points. Nasr would take the step up to the GP2 series in 2012, and although he wasn't challenging for the championship at any stage of the year, he showed the field that he was a very solid and consistent driver and managed to pick up 4 podiums, which helped Nasr finish 10th in the standings. He'd also have a brief 2-race stint in the Formula 3 Euro Series the same year and finish 3rd in the 24 Hours of Daytona. 2013 saw Nasr improve big time in his second season in Formula 2 and started to finish in the higher positions, albeit still wouldn't clinch that maiden win in GP2. He was in the title hunt for the first half of the year, but with just 3 points finishes in the final 8 races of the season, Nasr dropped off and finished 4th overall, and was 47 points back on the eventual winner, Fabio Lemay. Nasr would compete in the 3rd season in GP2 for 2014, and would finally start to win races. He won 4 races to be exact. Nasr was in a season-long fight for the championship with Jolyon Palmer and Stoffel Van Dorn, but he would lose out to Palmer, who won the championship, and Nasr finished 3rd with 224 points overall, which was his highest tally out of all of his GP2 seasons. But the major news for Nasr in 2014 was the fact that he became the Williams reserve driver. His first appearance was in a free practice session at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and would go on to make 4 further practice appearances throughout the season. Having impressed in both GP2 and his free practice sessions with the Williams team, Felipe Nasr landed the opportunity to race in Formula 1 in 2015 with Sauber, with major thanks to Nasr's sponsor Banco do Brasil, the largest bank in Brazil. Nasr had one of the best ever debuts for any F1 driver and had the greatest ever debut of any Brazilian driver, finishing 5th at Australia, in what was a truly impressive display, and he was, in my opinion, the driver of the day for that day. And with teammate Marcus Ericsson also scoring points, this was the first time since 2013 where Sauber scored points. 2 races later at the Chinese Grand Prix, Nasr, despite being in an inferior car compared to the majority of the competition, would finish in the points once again with an 8th place finish. His next great drive would come at Monaco, where he'd finish 9th out of 17 finishes, scoring him 2 points. He would then endure a 6-race run without a points finish, with 3 11th place finishes in this stretch as well. But he would then finish in the points in 3 of the next 4 races, where he finished 10th in Singapore, 9th in the USA, and a standout 6th place in Russia, where he was just simply superb. He wouldn't score any more points in the final 3 races of the season, and finished a solid 13th in the driver's standings with 27 points, and was comfortably better than Ericsson, who scored 9 points, and genuinely finished more races in the higher position compared to his Swedish teammate. A great feat considering Ericsson had an extra season of experience in Formula 1. 2016 would unfortunately be a disaster for Nasr and Sauber, thanks to major financial backers pulling out of the team, and this saw them get relegated to the very back of the grid. For the first half of the year, Nasr could not finish above 12th position, which was achieved at Baku as part of the European Grand Prix. In July, Sauber was bought by Longbow Finance. While this was good for Sauber, it was not good for Nasr, as Longbow Finance basically had a heavy association with Tetra Pak, who was headed by Hans Rausing, who was Marcus Ericsson's main sponsor at the time. So as you could imagine, Sauber started giving preferential treatment to Ericsson, such as getting upgrades earlier and getting first choice in strategy. And it even got so extreme at one stage that Sauber would deliberately sabotage Nasr's car in an attempt to make Marcus Ericsson look better. I may do an entire video about this in the future, so like and sub to this channel if you want this. But anyway, back to the story, and even with being treated as second class, Nasr was still keeping up with Ericsson for the most part, despite Ericsson having the better results for the majority of the time due to obvious reasons. At the second last race of the season in Brazil, with Sauber pointless and Manor just 1 point ahead in the constructors' fight, Nasr would conquer up one of his best races in his career and finish 9th in a rain-affected race in his homeland, and would catapult Sauber to 10th in the Constructors' Championship. Nasr's 9th place finish also meant he finished 17th in the Drivers' Championship. Ironically, however, Manor were rumoured to have wanted to potentially sign Nasr for the 2017 season, but with Nasr getting Sauber points and Manor losing out around $13 million in prize money, meant that Nasr basically killed off both Manor's and his own chances of lining up in Formula 1 the next year, and subsequently, Nasr was without a drive in F1 past 2016 and was never seen in the top level of motorsport again, partly thanks to his fractured relationship with Sauber, but also thanks to losing his main sponsor Banco do Brasil in late November 2016, which was basically the nail in the coffin. What happened to him post Formula 1? Well, Nasr would take a bit of time off, but he did compete in the 2017 Porsche Endurance Series for a short time. 2018 saw Nasr have a go at various competitions like the European Le Mans Series, 24 Hours of Le Mans, 24 Hours of Daytona where he finished second, and he'd be second again in 2019 in this competition, and Stock Car Brazil. But his main focus was on the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, in which he won the title alongside Eric Curran in a closely fought battle the whole season. Nasr would again compete in this competition in 2019, but this time could only finish runner-up. He also had a few cameo appearances in Formula E, which were uneventful for the most part, and as of currently is competing in his third season of the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. He and his team also finished 7th in the 24 Hours of Daytona in early 2020. He had a scare catching COVID in July 2020, but he has since recovered. Overall, I think it's just such a shame that a very talented driver like Felipe Nasr was basically shafted during his time in Formula 1, and his time in the sport really shows us that money and politics play a major role in drivers getting opportunities in the sport. Subscribe to the channel for more content and give this video a like if you enjoyed it.